How can we preserve nutritional goodness from farm to fork, given the urgent need to produce healthy, affordable, sustainable and culturally acceptable diets for all? This was the theme of the recent Nestlé International Nutrition Symposium held at Nestlé Research in Lausanne, Switzerland. More than 20 leading scientific lights from around the world came together to assess the current scientific evidence with a view to driving action. The pod that you're about to hear was recorded during the symposium, and the speakers refer to content from their presentations, which you can access in full via the YouTube link in the description. The speakers' views are their own. Enjoy the show. Welcome to our Power of Food podcast, live from NINS 2022. And for today's pod, we've got an all-star panel, thank you for joining us, lined up to talk about food technology, and namely how we can use it to preserve and enrich nutritional value. And today I'm in august company with Professor John Taylor from the Department of Consumer and Food Sciences, University of Pretoria in South Africa, and Professor Faustina Dufie Wireko-Manu, who works at Kwame, Nkrumah, University of Science and Technology in Ghana. So, as audience, you're well aware, chronic micronutrient malnutrition is a serious problem in sub-Saharan Africa. However, what fewer people consider is the fact that locally available cereals and pulse grains are rich sources of the very micronutrients, for example, iron and zinc, as well as bioactives that people lack in their diets. John, given that access to such foods is so widespread, why is micronutrient malnutrition such a problem?
I think it's important to first explain what we mean by micronutrient malnutrition. And many people in Africa don't have enough calories, don't have enough energy in their diet, but many more people don't have enough these so-called micronutrients. So micronutrients, more technically, are essential vitamins and minerals. And the condition is commonly known, and with some justification, as the hidden hunger. And so people first want to satisfy their need for calories, but that means that their diet is invariably very narrow. But strangely, that the very grains that people consume to actually meet their energy requirements are themselves actually rich in these micronutrients. For example, if we take the case of cereals, the African cereals, for example, the pearl millet, which is grown in the desert regions around the Sahara, the Sahel region, that for example, is rich in iron. And then if you take another example, there's a legume like the European bean, but it's unique to Africa, called cowpea. And that, for example, is rich in the mineral zinc. But the problem is with these grains is that these minerals are not bioavailable. So in other words, that you may take them into the body, but they're not actually then ingested into the bloodstream and then used by the body for their essential functions. And in addition to the grain staples, then there are a wide range of locally available fruits and vegetables, which are also rich in these essential micronutrients. Fruits, we could think about mango, for example, which is rich in beta-carotene, which is responsible for the orange color, and beta-carotene is a precursor of vitamin A. Everyone's familiar with carrots, the orange color of carrots, and carrots is probably the richest source of beta-carotene. The more perhaps interesting ones that are more unique to Africa, the fruit of the baobab. So the fruit of the baobab contains ascorbic acid. Everyone knows ascorbic acid as being vitamin C, and also then a related organic acid, citric acid, the same citric as in citrus fruit, like oranges. And these organic acids, then what they do is that they promote the bioavailability of minerals. The same occurs with the beta-carotene. But the challenge is that preparation of these foods is extremely time consuming. And nutritionalists, they often say, oh, this is a balanced diet, and they show a plate and they will have the cereals in one corner, whether it be in Africa a porridge, and they'll have the vegetable somewhere else, and then follows up with the fruits. But unfortunately, the reality is rather different. Africa then is becoming increasingly urbanized. Women, instead of then working on the local farm and staying at home, then they're part of the workforce. And so with the growth of the large cities in Africa and the poor infrastructure, mothers will spend and they travel to work, they will spend several hours a day, perhaps even 3 or 4 hours a day, commuting from their home to their place of work. So that means that there is actually not really enough time for a mother to give her family a nutritious meal. So this is what we come to a concept, a strategy which we call food-to-food fortification. What this is that to combine the staples, the cereal, the pulse, with the fruits and the vegetables into a single dish. And in much of Africa, the staple foods, not bread, but porridges. And so you can then combine these together into a porridge which has an attractive flavour brought about by the fruits, and so contributes and meets the micronutrient needs. And the presence of these so-called promoters or enhancers of micronutrient bioavailability, those that I've sketched out, the organic acids, the citric acid, the ascorbic acid, and the beta-carotene, what they do is that they help make the iron, the zinc, more available to the body.
Faustina, bring you in here. I wanted to ask if it rang true from your experience in Ghana that we can have these plant-based foods that are rich in micronutrients that are locally available, but in a sense people are time poor. These foods are inconvenient to prepare them. Does that ring true from your experience in Ghana?
Yes, exactly. I think we have similar issues as from South Africa, because we have local ingredients that are nutritious, but then they are underutilized. So currently our focus is looking for these local ingredients and then combining them, looking at their nutritional composition, and then those of good interests or those that have high nutritional values could then be combined with other ingredients locally, prepared locally, and then made available in a convenient form for our populace. Most of the fruits and vegetables and the legumes that he mentioned, we have them in Ghana as well. But then, for instance, orange flesh sweet potato, which is very high in beta-carotene and could be converted to vitamin A, is one of the key local ingredients that we are looking at, because we have a lot of vitamin A deficiencies, especially among the less than 5 years old, who need vitamin A for normal growth. They need that for their brain, they need that for vision and all that. So we are trying to look at how we can fortify other local ingredients with vitamin A from beta-carotene, and therefore make it available for our consumers, and then reduce vitamin A deficiencies among especially children and even the entire population.
John, going back to you and food-to-food fortification and how these different food types are being combined, I guess this is where technology comes in and plays a role.
The issue is that to many people, food processing is a dirty word. It's the connotation probably is incorrect. I mean, it's most basic that we don't eat a grain. We know it has to be then milled into a flour, and in Western culture that flour would be baked into a bread. In African culture that flour then would be cooked with water and made into a porridge. And that is food processing. The problem that I've alluded to is that if you take making an African porridge, this is a slow process. It can take an hour and a half to actually prepare a meal. What we and others have been looking at is to produce a ready-to-eat form of a porridge. And the closest analogy is with these instant coffee. And instant coffee, obviously Nestlé's great invention you have a powder that you add boiling water to it, and you've got a drink that's ready to drink. And so the same applies then with what we call this instant porridge flour. So the flour is shelf stable, but it doesn't need to be refrigerated, doesn't have any preservatives in it. All you do then is that you add the boiling water to it, stir, and then you've got a porridge. So the heart of the technology is what is called extrusion cooking. And extrusion cooking is a continuous way of gelatinizing the starch in flour. So with a little bit of water is added, and it's basically, one could imagine, like a meat mincer. So there's a tube with a screw in it, and the screw is turned with a motor, and at the end of the tube there's a small hole called a die, and what happens within that tube is it acts as a continuous pressure cooker. And so very rapidly, within a matter of about 30 seconds, the flour is cooked, whereas normally, as I say, it could take a full hour to do. With food-to-food fortification, what one then is doing is to cook not just the flour, but together with these fruits and vegetables. And I mentioned baobab fruit brings sweetness and adds these promoters of mineral absorption. Also talked about mango, also sweet, also then contributing the beta carotene, which also enhances the availability of the minerals, but also acts as a source of vitamin A. And I'm not saying you're going to have a complete food, but you certainly have a food which actually provides most of the essential minerals and vitamins, which can be then prepared as soon as it takes to boil the water, and then a minute to actually then prepare the porridge.
Nutritious convenience type foods. And maybe as a final point, you could discuss a project I think that you ran with USAID.
What I haven't said, and I should do, that this has been now an 8-year project which is supported by the US Agency for International Development, and it's called the Food Processing Innovation Lab, and it's led by Purdue University. The aim is not just to develop foods with improved nutritional value, it's to help support the creation of small but viable food processing enterprises. Where the most success has been in this Sahel Desert margin region, because there were food processing as an enterprise was essentially non-existent. Of these, now there's a small company in a town called Touba in Senegal that is producing what we call this instant food-to-food fortified instant porridge flour. 2 years ago, this company was produced of the order of about 200 tons of this instantized flour. And the number of local beneficiaries is quite remarkable. This generated an income of something like $300,000. And the main beneficiaries, it's by way of being a cooperative, are farmers and the women partners and workers within the enterprise. So they're both people who then trade within the grain, and then they also then actually then sell the instant porridge flour into the local community. Where I think it differs from the other forms of fortification is that this is perhaps something that's within the community. It's not imposed in the way that it comes from somewhere else in the world. These small enterprises are able to react to what the local consumers want. They know how much the local consumer can afford to pay. They know what flavours that the local consumers prefer. And so this gives a steady income to farmers. Normally fruits and vegetables are seasonal, but with the food-to-food fortification, then they have income all the year round. And although it's early days, the system that is now both in the Sahel region and East Africa, that there are something like 25 enterprises that are now operating in this system.
Faustina, so, John obviously was talking about local entrepreneurial enterprises, producing food with ingredients sourced and processed locally. And I imagine that in Ghana too, there's this trend towards going local, firstly with the crops and then with the processing to meet people's nutritional needs. Can you explain a little more the technologies that you've looked at in Ghana? I understand that their affordability is an issue as well, so we're looking at more traditional technologies for food preparation.
Yes, we have traditional methods that are used to either process or prepare some of these local ingredients. But as John rightly said, we also have extrusion that is handled at the commercial level to take some of the products that we have developed to commercial level. But then basically what we do with the locals is using traditional preparation methods like soaking, which is proved to reduce phytic acid, for instance, in millets. And then we also use fermentation to make more nutrients available in the ingredient. We also use drying, which all these methods are cheaper, not expensive, so that they don't add much cost to the final product, but then they are effective in processing these ingredients so that they could be incorporated, as I said, either into existing food products or new food products are produced out of them.
And can you talk a bit about some of the prototypes that you've created, which sound delicious, I have to say?
We have ingredients from different food groups. We have the legumes, soya bean, cowpea. We have the cereals, millet being one of the most nutritious cereals that is actually underutilized in Ghana. So we make prototypes with millets, orange flesh sweet potatoes, that I've said has high beta carotene already, and then we add the legume base so that you are getting the protein from the legume base, we are getting vitamin A from sweet potato, and then the millet is giving us more carbohydrate and also minerals and vitamins. So you get a food product that is at least appreciated in terms of nutrients instead of taking them individually at their different levels. In Ghana, we have a lot of products that may be mainly millets, mainly cassava, or mainly orange flesh sweet potato, but then we are trying to combine them so that we can have a product that is nutrient dense and could meet the challenge of nutritional deficiencies among the populace.
And in the testing that you've done, the consumer acceptance levels are...
Yes, most of the products, initially we make sure that it is feasible, and then consumer is also acceptable. I mean, the products are acceptable by consumers. So sensory evaluation is one of the key things that we do. And most of the products that we have done have very good consumer acceptability. We do different formulations and then we give it to potential consumers so that they select the best. And after that, we fine-tune the best recipe. And then sometimes our students take them up to business incubators to finalize them. And I'm happy to say that even some of our students after school go into production of these products at their local level, especially when we don't get a commercial institution coming for this product or going commercial. Our students themselves go into processing of them because we are using local processing technologies that are not so expensive and not so difficult to come by.
So it also creates this startup ecosystem as well around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We create startups, those that have the potential. As I said, in our university, we have a business incubator that they go through so that safety issues, standardization, regulation issues are addressed, packaging and all that, so that they can go into good business from what they have learned. And one key product, as I was saying, that we want to promote nationally is using our local ingredients, those that can be substituted with wheat. to make wheat-based products, because increased consumption of wheat-based products is currently the situation in Ghana, but we don't grow wheat. So we want to find out which of the ingredients could substitute for wheat or could composite with wheat, and then produce these products for our people, with benefits of having jobs created along the value chain. And then we also looking, eating our local foods. And one of the experiments that we did, we realized that most of the local root and tuber crops have lower glycemic index, which has implication in the health of individuals who are taking these composite based flour products, because when you have lower glycemic index, those with sugar related problems like diabetes and all that, it is good for them. So it means our local ingredients can also solve or help prevent or help manage such situations when they are used in products that are eaten every day.
No, that's absolutely fascinating, and given global supply issues especially at the moment around wheat. Thank you as well for those examples. It shows it's possible to hit that sweet spot between taste, affordability, nutrition, and localness.